Hi, and welcome to Meet the Mayor. This is Larry Petraccaro, and I'm here with Mayor Victor Luca of Maplewood. And want to talk about a couple of things, but with an election coming up, I thought it would be nice to get a handle on the what committee members on the Township Committee do, and a little bit about the organization of the various departments and what the Township Committee members' responsibilities might be. So, Vic, with that, maybe kind of in an overview, I've often wondered myself how we're organized as a township. What the different departments we have are, what their responsibilities are, whether committee members have direct responsibility for some of those. So maybe you can just elucidate.
Sure. Well, first, I think it's a rare breed when people hear a township committee, they don't really know what it is. People know about a city council, town council, but a township committee was really, it had its roots many, many years ago, and there's about 150 towns in New Jersey that still have a township committee. And it can be either 3 people or 5 people. Some of the smaller towns have 3 people. Almost all of them are run on a partisan basis, so we run in November as Democrats or Republicans. The interesting part of it as a township committee is you serve both a legislative and an administrative function. Mm-hmm. You make decisions, you pass ordinances and laws like that, but you also make decisions on some administrative policies. And as the mayor, I'm not directly elected by the people, so for people who move here from New York,
yeah,
this is probably blowing their mind because they're used to voting for the mayor. Directly, and a lot of towns around us, Irvington, East Orange, Newark, they all vote directly for the mayor. We are like Milburn. Milburn has a township committee. So the way this works is all the township committee members are equal. There's 5 of us. Mm-hmm. We're all equal. On January 1st, we vote to make one of us a little more than equal, and that's the mayor.
Okay.
And it's really the term by our bylaws is chair of the committee. We call it the mayor. And as the mayor, I'm the chief executive officer of the town. So I get to sign bills, I get to speak on behalf of the town, negotiate deals, things like that. Although I have a 3-year term as a township committee, I only have a 1-year term as mayor because every January we have to again select. So I used to play basketball, and I used to be good at boxing out under the board. So it's really a matter of can you get 3 votes to be mayor? And so far, I've done it for a few years. This was actually my 11th year. I did it for 3 years. I wasn't on the township committee for a couple of years, got back on, and now I'm in my 8th year consecutively as mayor. So the beauty, I think, of this is that everybody gets a vote, too. So oftentimes the mayors and the council play a game of pointing fingers at one another. They say, well, that I didn't vote for that, that's the council's job. Or the council says, well, I didn't propose that, the mayor did that. Here we can't hide. All of us vote, we're all on the record, all 5 of us vote. It takes 3 votes to make something happen. And so there's a sense of collegiality, mm-hmm, much more so than I think on some other governing bodies. There's a sense of working together. There's a respect because, again, you're working together, and every year you want to make things happen so that you can continue to go forward. So we work collegially. Everyone has responsibilities. We all sit on different subcommittees. We all are liaisons to various citizen groups, like a Recreation Advisory Committee, Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Committee, Historic Preservation Commission. So we're quite busy. One of the things about being an elected official is you don't have to look for work. It comes at you. And there's an awful lot of meetings, an awful lot of reading that goes on. I had a full-time job, and last year I haven't. I've been retired from my full-time job, and I wonder how I did it all before. But it can be taxing. It can be a challenge, but it's also very rewarding. And we tend to work in areas that are our expertise. So we have someone who had been working in the health field for a long time. So she's the president of the Board of Health and works on health matters and code enforcement matters. Others have had experience in community development and work more on that aspect of it. So it's really tapping the talents that we have there. We've had engineers, we've had lawyers, nonprofit executives. So I've served with about 13 different people over the years. This is my 17th year in office. So over that time, I've served with 13 different people, and everyone has been different. But everyone had a similar goal of trying to listen to what people had to say, oftentimes not agreeing, and doing what he or she thought was best, and trying to move the town forward. So that's pretty much sort of the big picture, the 30,000 view. The nuts and bolts is, we meet twice a month. We're there, we're meeting during the week. We're on conference calls. We meet with these different citizen groups. We respond. I have to tell you one thing that's just changed tremendously is the way in which citizens communicate now. When I first got elected, we used to get letters delivered by the mail. People would hand us things. Now it's emails, texts. People take pictures and shoot them to us. We use Facebook to communicate information. So it's really a different way of communicating now. With that, there's an expectation of having an immediate response. Before you would send a letter, you'd get a letter back. That whole process could take over a week. Now you get an email, and if you haven't responded in 24 hours, you get a second email saying, I sent you an email and I didn't get a response yet. So you have to be on your toes a little bit. It's a little more challenging, and it means you have to keep up on what's going on. The town is on the staff side. We have an administrator, and he or she, in this instance, he works closely with the Township Committee. We are his 5 bosses. So how's that for a job? You get 5 different individuals, and so he has to work with each of us and make sure we're all equally informed and given the opportunity to ask questions and have the ability to make the best judgment we can. And then there are roughly about a dozen or more department heads, everything from police chief, fire chief, who by law have statutory responsibility. We can't go in and say, Chief, we want this officer assigned here, or we think that you should move this person here, or we want you to appoint that person there. We can't do that. We do have a public safety committee, which we work with the police chief and the fire chief on overall policy issues. When a couple of years ago, we were experiencing more personal crimes, robberies, muggings. We sat down with the chief and we said, what do you need? And we talked with him about using more overtime. We said, we are authorizing you to spend more money because we didn't want this to be left unaddressed. We wanted to address this. So it's those kinds of things that we do. It's the policy level, it's the big picture. What are the trends? What are the things we have to work on? Same thing with DPW, our Department of Public Works, our engineering. We don't say to DPW, move the street sweeper from Joe Street to Pete Street or anything like that. But we do say, do you have sufficient street sweeping capacity? How are we doing this? How are we making sure? So we have an oversight role. We work closely with the department heads. They're all professionals. And it's that, we bring a citizen's perspective. We're not the professionals. I don't have an engineering degree. Even though my dad was a cop, I'm not a chief of police. But I represent the citizens, and I see and hear what citizens say to me. They're concerned about different things. One issue that we've been having a lot of conversations about, frankly, is the relationship between the police and communities of color. We want to get ahead of those conversations. We don't want to be like a lot of other communities, either putting our heads in the sand or not trying to talk about it. So we talk about sensitivity training, and we talk about how we're building relationships with leaders in the community, religious people in the community, people of color in the community, so that we're understanding some of the concerns and some of the things that we ought to be thinking about. We're challenging ourselves that way. So those are the ways in which the Township Committee can be a thought leader and a sort of a catalyst to have these conversations with department heads and such.
Now, the department heads, are those appointed by the Township Committee or by the administrator? How does...
That's a good question. They are appointed, generally the administrator does the process of interviewing and coming up with a couple of finalists, and then we evaluate the finalists. We also approve every police officer and every firefighter that gets put on our streets. There's particularly with the police. I mean, when I first got on, I said to myself, why are we dealing with this? And then someone said to me, who had been on for a while, said, look, we're giving someone a lifetime job. We're giving them a gun to go out in the streets of our community. We better be sure that we have confidence in that person. So the way it works is that people take a test, they get interviewed by the police, and then they come with a list of recommendations. And we interview them. Oftentimes, we approve, the list that they've given us. We approve it usually in the order. A couple of times, though, we said, you know what? We just don't feel comfortable with this individual being on the streets of our community. And that's another role that we have. We're kind of the eyes and ears of what's going on and what potentially could be happening in the community.
Does the same thing apply with the fire department, or do you look at that a little
We
differently?
do. We do with the fire department. It's a little different. With the fire department, we aren't giving them a gun, but we are, making sure. One of the questions we ask when we sit there and we ask, and oftentimes, I don't know what's happening, but they seem to be getting younger and younger when they come before us. But we sit there and we listen to these folks and we ask them, why do you want this job when you're running into danger when the rest of us are running away from it? And you want to get a sense from someone. Are they doing this because they want to serve and they're going to be careful and they care and why they want to work here? So those are the kinds of questions we ask. Why do you want to work in Maplewood? What is it about Maplewood that attracts you that you want to work here for 20, 25 years? So we do that for both of those. Those are the two that we do it consistently, even at that level. The rest are department head level that we interview.
And when you do the personnel interview, is that a behind closed doors type
Yes,
of thing?
that's-
It's not a public?
Yes, it's a good question because we're governed by the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay.
So and that's called the Sunshine Law.
Yeah.
So everything we do, we have to publicize. We can go into closed session and talk about a few different things. One is personnel, contracts, leases, disciplinary things. So other than that, everything's an open book. So we do go behind closed doors, do the interviews. We talk about our preferences. We kind of make a decision what we want to do. And then we have a public vote and ceremony when we do put these people into place.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break.
Okay.
So we're going to break for a minute, and we'll be right back with Victor Luca.
After 17 years working as a mason, Mike was laid off. I met him when he came into the library looking for help. He found a job opening, but the application was only online. Mike said he'd spent his entire life around tools, but had never used a computer. I showed him how, and he ended up applying for numerous jobs online. I saw Mike the other day. His new computer skills paid off. He's working again.
New Jersey libraries are transforming lives. Tell us your story.
Yeah, welcome back to Meet the Mayor. This is Larry Petraccaro, and I'm here with Victor Luca, the mayor of Maplewood. And thank you, Vic, for that bit of an explanation that we've got. One thing to clarify in my mind, you were talking about the Township Committee form of governance.
Right.
About 150 out of the, what is it, 600 and some odd?
565 towns.
Towns that do it. And you mentioned, so we don't vote for the mayor. The mayor is elected by the committee itself. And in fact, I think you said that the actual title is not mayor, it's
Chair.
Chair. So does that mean that in a mayoral type municipality, the mayor functions as an executive, whereas in a township committee type of arrangement, he functions both as an executive and as a legislator, so he
Yes.
has a vote?
So just to give you a couple of examples, in a city government like Newark, or even a borough, like some of the small boroughs around Clark and those places, the mayor sits with the council, but cannot make a motion, cannot vote, sits there, might run the meeting, but really is not, doesn't have that legislative role. And the mayor there can veto. If the council passes something, the mayor can veto. It happens rarely, but it has happened. And that's a power that mayor has. In my instance, as the mayor, I sit there, run the meeting, I have a vote, I can introduce a measure. You know, it's we do the motion second, and then you vote. I can bring something up, I can second it. I can't veto anything. So I have a different role, even though the same title, in that I'm a much more active member of the governing body. And there's not that separation as you'll find in other places. You know, typically like you have the president and the Congress. It's a separation.
You're right.
We don't have that. You have the governor and the legislature. In a township committee form of government, we're meshed. The mayor is part of that governing body, has all the voting power and responsibilities as the other four governing members, but just has a few more responsibilities.
And each of the members of the governing body represent the entirety of Maplewood, right?
Correct.
It's
We're
not-
all elected at large.
At large, yeah.
And I don't believe, I've never heard of a township committee that has wards or sections where I think you're all elected at large.
Okay, yeah, that's what I understood from the elections I've gone to,
Right,
I always looked
right.
at. One of the things you mentioned that was kind of interesting was the change in communications. And you mentioned Facebook. So we actually have a Facebook page?
Yes, we do. We have a Facebook page, we have a website, we tweet things out. I don't think we're doing Instagram yet, although I'm not positive. We have tried to sharpen our communication tools. And I'll tell you when this really came into play, and it was 4 years ago when Sandy hit, and we lost a lot of stuff. So we were using whatever availability social media we could, and I was using the press and getting information out. But we were also using our website, and at that point we didn't have a Facebook page. So we've changed a lot in trying to push out information. You know, the website is a very passive tool of communication because people have to come and search it and all that.
Been on it.
With Facebook, you can push stuff out. We do a lot of blasts now. We do email blasts. We have about, I think, I would say it's over 5,000 emails that we blast out information. Maybe closer to 6,000 people who sign up. You can go onto the website, sign up for
Right.
email blast. So it's a whole different way of us trying to get information out. Personally, I use Village Green. I use the other two electronic media outlets, Maplewoodian and TAP, to get information out and use the news record. Going back to the storm-related things, one of the lessons we learned was to have a radio outlet, so we've created a relationship with Seton Hall Radio. Most people, if you listen to Seton Hall Radio in a non-emergency, it's kind of eclectic music.
Yes, yes, yes.
But we have now an agreement with them that in the case of an emergency, we'll be able to broadcast either in person by going there if we can, or through the phone, getting messages out in case we weren't able to get there for whatever natural disaster occurred. So there's some, and then the other thing is that we've also learned from Sandy is that the good old-fashioned bulletin board works. So in Sandy, we did some town criering. We went to the library and we would give updates. We would kind of do a tour. I was up at Morrow Church where they had a shelter every night. I went to our shelter that we ran at the DeHart Center and gave an update of what was going on and told everybody good night before I went home and went to bed. So we were at Winchester Gardens. So it was the verbal communication. So we're trying a lot of different ways. We're not able to hit everybody. There are some people, no matter what you have, who just aren't clued in. Local government is not on a lot of folks' radar. When you look at elections, presidential election, people come out. Governor's election, a healthy group of people come out. When you start going down and down and down, if you get to a local election, school board elections, you get like in the teens. People just aren't as they don't perceive it as that critical as sort of a president. But in reality, to me, it's pretty critical.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Because we're the one doing most of your taxing, and we're making most of the decisions that are going to affect your day-to-day life. Are the streets clean? Are the police keeping you safe? If you have an emergency, is the fire department going to get there on time? Are the schools operating? Those are the things that I think the local government and the school board provide that people, I think, should pay maybe a little bit more attention to.
Yeah, I always used to marvel that people will complain about their taxes, yet they won't go to the school board election, and this were 60% here.
Right.
I mean, you guys, you operate on about a quarter of the of the taxes.
For every dollar we bring in, 25 cents is spent by the town. 60% is given to, a little less than 60, to the school board, and the balance, around 15% or so, is given to, or 20% is given to the county.
Now, how would we find the Facebook page? I didn't realize you had a Facebook.
Just go on Facebook and
Type
search
in
us. Yeah,
Maplewood, New Jersey,
Township.
or Maplewood Township. Okay.
Yeah, so anybody can go on, find Maplewood Township, like us, and you'll be our partner forever.
I'm gonna have to do that. So, if somebody was interested in, is there one location where somebody can find where all this electronic communication is available? Communications.
It might be on the website. I'm not sure.
Might be on the website. Okay.
But I would say the critical thing, if someone wanted just to get information, is to go on our request for service, or not request for our code area up on the right of the website. I think you request communication, and you can sign up for what you want. Now, if you have kids and you're doing the recreation, you probably want to sign up for emails from our recreation department. You may not care about the engineering committee, engineering department, but you might want to sign up for recreation. Or if you care about police activity, you can sign up on the police website for Nixle. Nixle is a separate sort of email service that comes out that we talk about, or the police talk about, make announcements about road closures, about any problems we might have, code people who are lost, either seniors lost or when children are taken away. So Nixle is another thing that people might want to pay attention. But then you're going to get every Nixle, every time a parking lot closes in town, they're going to send you a notice about it. But it's helpful because you do know when the water company's out working on Valley and stuff. So communication is a tool that we're looking at communication tools. We're constantly trying to challenge ourselves as to how to get information out.
Well, I think it's admirable. Yeah. I mean, communication, in my experience, it's usually the biggest problem you have. You have a conversation and you talking to somebody, maybe saying the same thing and not know it. This communication is an issue.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about that gave me a thought. There are different aspects or opportunities within the Township Committee, aren't there, for citizen participation?
Yes.
What are some of those?
We have about 100 appointments that are in different committees. Again, Historic Preservation, Open Space Trust, Environmental Advisory, Affordable Housing, Recreation. So people sign up. We have a volunteer resource form which people fill out. When we have openings, we look at those possibilities and we make appointments. And we've really started now to look harder at bringing younger people on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our community has changed a lot. There's been a sort of a, I don't want to say a youthing of our, that's not even a word, but sort of a thrust of younger people moving in. We want to make sure we're bringing them on to the Township Committee, and we've elected some people in their 30s and 40s, and also bringing them on these different committees.
Yeah, I think you're right about the youthing. Sounds like a reasonable word to me because, you know, as I get around town sometimes, I see a lot of young parents with young children, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's great. We only have about a minute left. We don't
Yes.
have very much more time. So one thing, and this may not give you enough time, I'll have to keep my eye on it, but are there some kinds of programs that are not very well known? I know,
Yeah.
we know that you clean the streets, but
Right.
but what about things for seniors or for home maintenance or things like that?
Yeah,
Are there
well,
some
one thing I
programs?
think we want to get the message out is we have an affordable housing repair program, and that is if your house is in disrepair, for life safety issues, you need a new roof, you need windows, boiler, all that kind of stuff, and you're income qualified, we will provide up to $20,000 in a forgivable loan over 10 years for you to get those repairs done. And we've had some trouble getting people to know about this. And with all the development we've just done in town, we've gotten some significant contributions to this fund on purpose so that we can do more of these. And so that's one thing that people can do. The other is that we have, believe it or not, we have a welfare office in town.
Okay.
And we have a welfare director who works part-time. She's someone who, when you're having some difficulty, she will work with you to try to get through the system. We also, through our Maplewood Fund, every time I do a marriage, I ask the people I do the marriage for to make a $100 contribution to the Maplewood Fund. I don't get paid for it. The Maplewood Fund is used to buy food, to provide people with utility vouchers when they have hard times. So that's the other thing. If someone's having a difficult time, or you know of a neighbor's having a difficult time, make an appointment with our welfare director and have a conversation.
I think we're going to have to end with that, but that sounds like it might be, that whole concept might be a topic worth talking about at
Okay.
another time. But thank you for joining us with Larry Petraccaro and Victor Luca on Meet the Mayor. See you next time.